I've got 10 minutes and I'd take an hour if I didn't use it. I'd just like to say, happy birthday, Crystal Waters. Happy 30th. 30 is a great age. I'm just past the middle of 30 myself and I'm loving it. There's lots of possible changes this time of life. There's a better sense of self, and I hope your 30s are as great as mine have been so far. Now, I was just old enough to remember when Crystal Waters was, I guess, a baby. Like most babies, it was so cute, so full of energy and potential, so wide-eyed and ready. And like most babies, there was a lot of screaming and crying and stumbling and pooping and teething pains. But that's what happens. I remember learning so much during your first 10 years or so, and I'm forever grateful for that. I remember learning how to dig holes, how to identify groundsel. I remember learning how to be a clown with Florence. I remember learning how to sew my own board shorts with Glennis. I remember learning how to climb with the Ainscoes, how to ride a bike and run and rollerblade and swim with Rain and Zahn. I remember learning theatre with Ian Dooley. I remember learning snippets of permaculture theory with Jenny Allen before I even understood what permaculture was. I remember learning soccer with Dirk, learning to sail with Andy Hay, filmmaking and somewhat unintentionally sex ed from Johnny and June. I remember learning to play music with just about everybody and singing with just about everybody, which has come in really handy now. I remember learning to swim and do everything pretty much naked with just about everybody. I remember learning how to relate to old people with old Dave and how to ask questions that bridge the age gap rather than ignore it. And I remember learning to build and dance and play fair and look after yourself and observe people and grow food and appreciate what you've got and develop a strong work ethic and a whole lot of other things from my parents. And I learned that I didn't just have two parents, I had a whole community of them. And I will always appreciate that. And at the end, I learned how to say I'm not a hippie, again and again and again. And then a bit later still, I learned to say, okay, no, I am a hippie, but here's why. And now I don't know what a hippie means, so I'm giving up. And during this time, the early phases, there were a lot of things that I don't remember learning, but I must have. Things that everybody learns, regardless of where they are, but they were confusing lessons to me because I was learning them from that baby, Crystal Waters, and it was really cute. I didn't think it could do any wrong. I learned that when people say be kind, it doesn't always mean that they will be. I learned that when people say they want to change the world, it sometimes means changing everything but them. I learned that preserving and regenerating the natural environment is as much about people as it is trees. I learned that people who agree with each other on 99.9% of things is great, but they usually focus on and fall out over the 0.1% that they don't. And at the time, I was really disappointed because I thought that was as good as it gets. And I guess I didn't realise how much of a double-edged sword idealism can be. But you achieved heaps during that time. Once you're up and walking, you started getting lots done. The working bees, the building, the community meals, the number of name and relationship changes alone was quite a feat. And there was so often a feeling of, we're all in this together, regardless of the challenges. At least that's how it felt to me. Just coming into my teens and learning that I was part of something truly special. Seeing so much goodwill, so much selfless offering of time and energy. Now, I grew up in Lot 3 there, which was one of the earlier houses to be built while everyone else was still living in tents and caravans, and the VA was sort of the place to be. And living in one of the few already built houses, I saw our family dining table regularly extended as bedraggled newcomers braved the plank from the VA during a storm to come and join our family for a while. I saw big groups of people working together, helping each other out, and being quick to offer a hand. And thank goodness there are still so many, the overwhelming majority of people around that still see things that way. and it's always a real joy to come down here, even though I'm not as much a part of the community anymore, to see people just helping because they want to. I like that bit too. No, I had a messy patch in my teens, as everyone always does, and I'm sorry, Crystal Waters. I ended up hanging out with my other friend Mulaney a bit more than you guys, because the long distance thing is really tricky, and I was sort of based mainly up at the high school. So I'm sorry I didn't make it down here to see you as much and hang out. And then not long after you hit double digits, 10 years old, and it felt like it was a real pioneering phase coming to an end almost. Lots had changed. And it seemed to me at the time like, to quote George Bush Jr., mission accomplished. Then as you hit your teens, I moved away. I went to the big city and life was very different. I tried smiling and saying hello to strangers and they didn't always smile back. And when people honked their horns, they didn't want to say hello. But I learned a lot there too. I learned that you can live in a really environmentally sustainable way in a city like Brisbane. I learned that you can cover really big chunks of cities by foot or bike if you're already used to running everywhere. I learned that people there valued lots of the things that I'd learned here. I learned communications theory, and through that I learned how many fantastic systems there are available to us. How many ways there are to minimise and resolve conflict. How many ways there are to build a social framework that benefits from differences rather than being brought down by them. And I wondered then, what was happening in all those AGMs at the Common House where us kids sat outside wondering if we should go in and check on the adults and see if we could help them out a bit to play kind and play fair. And I knew that was a room full of kind, well-intentioned, very smart, very well-educated people with great communication skills, which I found perplexing. So what was going on? Was it a lack of design in the underlying process? Was it a fascination with that 0.1% difference? Was it that everyone was so excited about their ideals that those ideals just became too precious to compromise? Was the human collateral damage just believed to be a necessary part of working in a community? Maybe that's the case. Was it too liberal, too conservative, too organic, too personal? I remember wondering those things there as a kid, then while studying at uni, and even today. The political landscape seems different now. It seems less centralised, less vocal, less energetic. Maybe everyone just got tired, and maybe that's a good thing. But I'm really sad to hear that there's still so much damage being done. Wasn't the goal closer to grand designs than Game of Thrones? And now my biggest wonder is it too late to reach those original ideals? Will the hurt just keep getting passed on? Did we miss a chance to truly embrace care of people? So living away, I didn't really get to see a lot of what was happening during your teens, but when I was here, I noticed there were some really great things that happened. You were looking beautiful. There were forests growing, people being wonderful, exciting projects taking early steps. It wasn't just blady grass-covered paddocks and raw-cut earth. There were new people, new energy, new ideas. There was music, there was possibilities. Crystal Waters, I wish I could have been here more then. Then while you're in your 20s, I decided the corporate world wasn't my thing, and I went further away, and I got yet another perspective on you. You have so much potential. You're a lucky community, in a lucky region, on lucky earth, in a lucky country. There are some thrilling new changes happening around the world, and you've got every opportunity to be a part of them. There are some great tools out there, new and old, for you to use. Ways to debate without being adversarial. Ways to hear and deal with fears. Ways to improve efficiency and sustainability. Ways to build structures and businesses and relationships. Ways to obtain a yield. Ways to minimise our footprint. Ways to track our progress. And ways to use what we've learned to inspire others. And maybe that's not where you're at the moment. Maybe you are tired of the hard work and ready for retirement at this phase. But 30 is really a bit early for that. Have another look at what's out there. It's amazing. So after running around for a bit, I came back, almost, just up the road. And I've really enjoyed being able to introduce you to my new family. Kelly and I got to celebrate our joint 30th here. We got married here. We get to bring our kids here. I got to tell my mum that she was going to be a grandmother here. And after working the coffee machine over at the bakery with Kelly and Les and Pete and so many other great people, and making bellows with my dad, and hanging out at the markets, and working with the phenomenally underappreciated chai tent crew, and having Roger and Christopher and Paddy and Dad and so many others help renovate my house, and working with Francis and Jeff and Sam and Steve and Kat and lots of others from the extended community up in Witter. I've really learned that I do love being a part of this, no matter what, but without having to be too much a part of this. It makes all the difference. I'm not suggesting you all take that approach. Funny down here. But like me, I know that there's a lot of people watching from the wings, and they're waiting to see what will the new pioneering phase be if it comes. And we've seen people come and try and been pushed away or ridiculed or harassed, and I sometimes wonder what could have happened here by now if we'd learnt to deal with those things a bit earlier. If the reins had been handed over, or if the succession planning model here was stronger. I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. There's still lots of time. I look forward to staying in touch with you and seeing how your 30s go. Like I said, I'm a big fan of being a 30-something. It's a great phase of life. You've been around the block a few times, but not so many times that you're exhausted. Change happens and you're better equipped to deal with it. So 30s is a really good time in life to put bigger plans into action. It's also a great time to start thinking about the next generation. And that's a great ride. I'm learning heaps from my kids, about myself and about them. And Crystal Waters, you've got some great kids, and you keep producing them. I hope you teach them as much as you taught me, and I hope that you learn as much about yourself from them as I get to learn from my kids. Happy 30th birthday, Crystal Waters.
Hello everybody, what a delight it is to be here. Thank you. At 78 I probably qualified to be amongst the older speakers. And I guess I'd like to say that even though I don't have any Indigenous connection and consequently can't experience their connection to country, I certainly experience a connection to the land here in this upper Mary River Valley. I drove over the ridge back there time and time again with a sense of coming home. On the land here, there was always a sense of being home. I could walk around, and mainly this was in the period 1978 to 84. I'd walk around and I'd experience the energy of the ley lines, of the energy points upon the land, and I felt very connected to this land. I know there are others of you here who feel the same way. I especially know that Amber and Annie Wall feel that way, and I know others too. So that's an important aspect of why I'm here. The 30th anniversary of something that happened that time ago is dependent on threads coming together. I've realised that more importantly since Wolfgang said something to me not long ago. One thread is obviously the permaculture thread, and I won't speak about that, other people are better qualified. The thread that I can talk about is the thread of my connection with the land. And to that extent, I'm thinking back 50 years of celebration and also 40 years of celebration. 50 years ago, I rode my horse over a 3,000-acre beef cattle property. And the land that is now Crystal Waters was the front 640 acres of that beef cattle property. I was looking at it on behalf of the syndicate of my clients, absentee clients who lived in Sydney and Melbourne, and I decided to buy it on their behalf. So that celebration of 50 years ago is a thread that leads up to our 30 years celebration. The next celebration, from my point of view, is a 40-year celebration. 1978, I had moved onto the land, and in 1978, other people began to move here with me, and Crystal Waters Community founded. That opened doors for me that I'd never realised were there before. I mentioned the door that opened was my experience of connection to land. The other door that opened was my connection to people in the way of friendships that I've never had before. We had a beautiful group of people, initially just 20 to 25 people. And what I experienced was a harmony and a unity of people, as I said, that I've never experienced before. So 1978 was an important year for me. Not only did those doors open, but also there was a transition where I signed a document that purchased the land in the name of Crystal Waters. I won't go into how that name came about at this stage, but it's on the DVD that you can see in there. So 1978 was a very significant year, and there's a celebration of 40 years today. The Crystal Waters community went through a number of cycles. There was that first cycle that I talked about, when there were 20 to 25 people. For various reasons, we decided we needed a legal entity. And in 1980, we decided to form a cooperative. There were barely enough people for a formation meeting, and we were a bit worried we wouldn't get enough. But we said, put the word around, and over 100 people turned up to our formation meeting. It was amazing. And we celebrated with people from Brisbane, the Sunshine Coast, and local people from Maleny at that formation meeting. The actual registration of the co-op went through in early 1981, and there was an explosion of population, mainly because two families, the Walls and the Merrills, moved onto the land. So another phase of Crystal Waters community had begun. And we eventually got to 80 or 90 people in that phase. And we went through all sorts of things. Of course, we had to learn how to make decisions. We had to learn how to work together. And there tended to be two groups of people. People who came here with idealistic expectations and people who came here to drop out. Boy, what a mix that was. The dropouts sat up in the veranda up there, smoked cigarettes and drank coffees. And those, the idealists, were down in the garden planting things in the orchard and everything. But one very special person turned up in that time. Old Dave. Dave was an amazing person. He rang me and said, I'd like to come and look at this place called Crystal Waters. And I said, we go to town each Thursday in our bus to do our shopping. Meet me in Nambour. He met us there and he came out. He never left. And Dave was an incredible person. He was much older than any of us, and he was here right through till he passed away and is buried over in the cemetery. So that was a phase where 80 or 90 people, we decided we'd make decisions by consensus. Wow, that was interesting. We had long meetings. I loved it because people got the chance to express themselves. When we didn't reach a decision to change something, I used to say, well, that's a wonderful decision. We've decided to leave it the same. People didn't like that much either. We had a fiery little redhead immigrant from Russia, Tanya, and she was just so disruptive of our meetings. And I remember several times Steve Swan going over, picking her up, she was only tiny, carrying her away so she couldn't disrupt the meeting anymore. So we went through that phase of 80 to 90 people. And in 1983 or 4, I think it was, I was away for about 89 months, but we came back and at various meetings we had quite a bit of conflict. And I eventually said at a meeting, I think everybody here needs to go home and think about whether they're here to give to Crystal Waters or to receive from Crystal Waters, to get something from the place or to give something to the place. There wasn't any more discussion, but slowly over the next few months, people packed their gear into their vans and utes and things and drove out of the place. Heartbreaking for me and heartbreaking for a few other people too. But for some reason or other, and now I understand in retrospect why, we got back to only 7 or 8, 9 people here. Di, you'd remember that phase of the group. Di is an important member of the community. She's never lived here, but you've been part of Crystal Waters, haven't you, Di? Yeah. And at that stage, it was the end of another phase, obviously. And those that were left decided to contact someone to try and give us a legal structure. We contacted Max and Robert, who were the permaculture consultants, and after discussions we decided that they would put together a group title subdivision application for about 30 blocks. And that was okay. We had no money to pay them. We were asset rich and cash poor, so we had no money to pay them. They were going to do it in between other jobs. Before they got very far, Max rang me to tell me there was a group of people from Mebane Springs, which was a group title, no, not a group title. It was a proposal in Northern New South Wales that had fallen apart. And this group of people were looking for somewhere in Queensland to establish a community. And this Max, I think, said to me, "You've got the land, they've got the money, you should talk." So we did. And very quickly we realised there was a good potential there. There were people living on the land, 6 or 7 people. It was never considered that they should be evicted from the land and lose their homes. So there was always going to be a group of people that lived here who were going to be part of the eventual group title subdivision. And of course it was possible to think in larger terms, and the 80 plus residential lots concept came about. I think I've taken it as far as I wanted to take it, because after that my responsibility, I felt, had finished. I would never consider myself any sort of leadership role here. I never did anything that didn't seem to be the right thing at the time. The one thing I did feel was a custodianship for the land. And there were a few times it was proposed that one of the 3 blocks be sold to give us some cash to do something here. And I always opposed that because I felt the land should stay as it was. So that's just about my part of the story leading up to the 30-year celebration. So to me, the 30-year celebration couldn't have taken place today if it hadn't been for the permaculture thread and my connection with the land thread coming together to create what we've got today. Thank you very much.
They've actually been here for a while. I haven't picked for a few days. And this is the nut. We started in '79 with the permaculture course, and then the first conference was organised by Hans Herkens and a few people. In '84, Robin Francis was there too, and of course our own Robin Clayfield would have been there. And these were, I think, all stepping stones to where we are now. Each part is important and we don't necessarily know where it leads to. Crystal waters, I think, play part in that as well, in the whole evolution of permaculture. And I do wonder what will happen in the next 30 years.
For the next 30 years, what is it that we can do with this place? Because people look at it from afar and look to it as kind of a point of reference about how to live sustainably. What can we be doing that's even better? I think we've achieved a lot of the goals that we did set out to do. Some we haven't. We need to stretch our goals.
Lovely to see a community grow, because 30 years here is quite big, you know. I haven't never been in one place for 30 years. It's quite special, so it comes deep to my heart.
You're a lucky community, in a lucky region, on lucky earth, in a lucky country. There are some thrilling new changes happening around the world, and you've got every opportunity to be a part of them. Ways to improve efficiency and sustainability. Ways to build structures and businesses and relationships. Ways to obtain a yield, ways to minimise our footprint. Ways to track our progress, and ways to use what we've learned to inspire others. Happy birthday, Crystal Waters. Happy 30th.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Waters. Happy birthday to you.
Crystal Waters, known as the first permaculture village in the world, is a work-in-progress experiment in permaculture design, demonstrating areas of success as well as challenges yet to be resolved. It's located about 100 kilometres north of Brisbane in Queensland, Australia, near the main town of Mullaney and close to a village called Conondale. Still in its early settlers phase, this eco-village has over 200 residents, occupying 100 dwellings, with plentiful veggie gardens and community buildings spread across 640 acres, linked by 7 kilometres of roads. Abounding with wildlife and bird life, Crystal Waters is a nature sanctuary worth experiencing. At the head of Mary River, Crystal Waters enjoys a varied habitat, lovely views and water security from its 16 dams.
Minerals, organic matter, what else is it made up of?
And we ask for people to do a bit of maintenance while they're here, and they'll often use some of...
Known worldwide as a centre for permaculture education, Crystal Waters has venues for design courses and health retreats. Established as a wildlife sanctuary, Crystal Waters prohibits dogs and cats. This allows wallabies, kangaroos, echidnas and many other creatures to live safely in close proximity to its residents.
They build underneath the inlet into the lid. Yes. This is all honey. So they have plenty of stores coming into winter. This is probably 10 kilograms of honey in there. I love the smell. We can smell it at the moment. We can smell the honey. And it's just, to me, it's magnificent.
And I see the amazement in people's faces all the time when they actually hear what this place is and they see it and they feel it and they experience it for the first time possibly and give us the feedback. I wish I could live in a place like this. This is extraordinary.
We've got, I think, a very good social life. We've got several different interest groups. I play games with some people and I played music with a group of people here. And we've got a philosophy group as well.
The access to wilderness areas has been very good indeed. If you look around here, you don't necessarily think it's a wild area, but we've got 100 acres or so of natural bushland here still.
It's one of the things that makes Crystal Waters special is when you drive in and you see the number of wallabies, kangaroos, things running around the place fearlessly, coming into people's houses even, sitting at their back doors and stuff like that, things you don't see. I've been in Australia for the best part of 35 years and it certainly isn't common, but in Crystal Waters it's very common and you think that's one of the charming things. I love the community here. I absolutely love the notion that we live in this little island out in the bush where we're all thrown together. It can include all the different facets of this place, the permaculture, the music. The community meals, the sharing, just the whole sense of community.
Tonight we are gathered to celebrate all the people who have been cooking for us in our community meals. So thank you. Can we just give a round of applause for all of this?
I love our community meals on a Friday night. They're a great source of strength to the community, very well attended by people who are focused on making this place the best possible place they can to live and to bring up their children. I'm very excited about the number of children in the community, people coming in and choosing to live here and bring their children up here. I think that's a great testament to what we have here. I think Crystal Waters is a wonderful experiment.
Look, we tried to establish something here which was using permaculture principles. So there is a design here, but the design also is constantly evolving as we get older.
I had met a guy who gave me a book to read, a book called The Magic of Findhorn. Eileen and Peter Caddy had founded the community in Scotland, and I had a very strong connection with Eileen Caddy, the Findhorn community in Scotland, and my moving to the land at Crystal Waters was the beginning of quite a major transformation for me.
It's pretty much on today's date 30 years ago that I moved here. There was so much that happened here before I came. I bought into the plan in the mid-80s and then moved here in 88. And we've got this most amazing man, Bob Sample, here, who was the manager of the cattle consortium in the very early days, I understand, and also was part of inviting community to happen here and horse track businesses. And if it wasn't for Bob, I know I wouldn't be here.
Well, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to think back over the past. And my connection with the land goes back to the late 1960s, when, as you said, I actually bought the land on behalf of some absentee owners, and the Crystal Waters land at the present time, the 640 acres, was just the front part of a 3,000 acre property. I actually moved onto the land in November 1977. I'd signed a contract to buy these 3 blocks that are now Crystal Waters, and I moved on with about 50 or 60 horses and my partner Francoise. So My intention at that time was to re-establish my horse stud and build stables and nice fences and everything like that. But the universe had other ideas.
Yes.
And within a year of 20 to 25 people had moved on to form this little community, and the name Crystal Waters was adopted. It wasn't anything that I did to make that happen, but I didn't oppose it either. I just allowed whatever was going to happen to happen.
Mm. So you didn't intentionally set out to create a community?
Not at all, no. By the time the finance was available, I realised that it wasn't going to be a horse stud for myself, that this Crystal Waters concept was real and strong, and I actually bought the property in the name of Crystal Waters, which was legal at the time, not now, but it was legal at the time. We flowed on from there in 1980. We realised that we needed a legal entity, so we decided to form a cooperative, and the formation meeting was at the end of 1980, and the registration of the cooperative was early 81. Soon after that, a big explosion in the number of people here took place, and we had two families, the Walls and the Merrills, move on, and just in the two families we nearly doubled the population. Yes. And it wasn't long before there were 80 or 90 people living here as part of the Crystal Waters community.
I feel Crystal Waters is a very female place. Bob Sample choosing this place, I think, wasn't an accident. I think he could also sense that this has a very nurturing energy here. When we live here, when we garden here, when we relate with the animals and birds, we're carried somehow. It feels gentle and female and nurturing, yeah.
I've been here for coming on 38 years. Angelique, to be precise. But yes, Annie Wall of the Wall clan. The horse stud was here, and my father was actually working with Bob. He was like a gadabout, a jackaroo kind of thing, jack of all trades. There was 4 cows. That was a pretty big part of my life back then, because I used to be the gun milker. Muscles on me like Popeye. I was living in Nambour and my parents came and kidnapped me, and looking out over the valley, just not believing that I could be going down into this mystic valley. It was like a bit of mist and it was sunlight, and it was like, oh my God, how come I didn't know it was here? And that was it. I was 16 and a half. So my grandson is 2 years away from when I moved here in age.
There were about 50 kids, and they all used to visit each other, walk the roads to go see each other, and felt quite safe.
Barry Goodman, one of the other designers, had this fabulous criteria list of, lots of permanent water and north-facing slopes and slopes between 3 degrees and 20 degrees for house sites, and to help them look for land and select a piece of land that could really support a village lifestyle.
The main people I worked with down here were Barry Goodman and Rob Tapp. We were the guys who were actually doing the implementation stuff. That Jeff and Max were kind of more at the cerebral planning level, getting all of the plans and how it would go together, and then we had to translate that into on-the-ground earthworks. I was brought in because I'd had quite a lot of experience with building dams and roads.
I arrived in 1990, did a permaculture course with Max, but I'd been here before that when the 4 designers were doing fortnightly talks, and the place wasn't developed. There were no dams, no roads. We were put into 4-wheel drive vehicles and bumped all over the place looking at the whole area, and just fell in love with it.
So we had a master plan at that stage that the founders had all been involved in, where the gullies crossed with the road here. They wanted to create lots of water bodies so that there was plenty of water on site. That's one of the restrictions with this sort of community, is not having enough water, and it's been great. I think this has been one of the real successes of Crystal Waters, is that the original infrastructure vision was spot on. So back in 1987, when we were doing the earthworks, there weren't a lot of people, but those people all participated in envisaging what the place could be like in the future after all of the infrastructure was done. It's just a matter of revisioning that with all of the new people who've moved in to say, you know, what do we want? How do we want to create this future?
I guess my vision for the future would be to work together more with other people and to do small scale farming. I think that's what's difficult a little bit in the design of Crystal Waters, because everyone sort of has their own block. So you're kind of forced to garden your own block yourself. You don't have really a reason to work together with other people on. But I think that's slowly changing. I think we're pretty lucky because we're sort of the second generation coming back, and, you know, the houses are already built and there's places to live and the infrastructure's all there, which the first generation that moved here were really busy with all that stuff.
No, I strongly believe that Crystal Waters could actually be an example of how things could be done, as an example of a solution. And I think we were more of an example, say 10, 15 years ago than we are today. And it's actually embarrassing to say. If you look around here, and people do say, where is the permaculture? And I can point them to places where you can see the permaculture in action in the early design of the way the roads are placed in relation to dams and to the slopes, and where the houses are placed, where the lots are placed. That's all part of permaculture design. But as far as food production is concerned, there's very, very little to show here.
Just try to lift it up and then guide it into the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's possible for humans to live in a paradise situation, and Crystal Waters proves that. Have created a really good example of blending with nature. And the payback is, you're healthier, you're happier. I'm a person who works overseas. I do a lot of aid work in disaster zones and things like that. Crystal Waters is always a haven. Even if I've been away for 10 years, I come back here and I just sit around for a couple of hours and I feel better. It's a healing space.
E, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Ooh, I like that, harmonizing. Alfred, harmonizing.
Welcome to ground floor. As we see it, is the entrance to the future and the new Crystal Water playground, and growing food together. The future is about us connect again to the soil as a collective and not separated, as individuals. It's all about sharing and grow, not just food, it's grow as individual, but grow as a collective as well in the same time. It's not about me grow food for myself, it's about me showing, teach, and do it with other people for everybody. Food is a medicine, so we want to use all these different possibilities from growing different stuff, not just for eating. So use it to clean dishes, for the bath, giving a new life to plants, and use it and process and compost and see the whole circle of us using and learning what is available in nature.
When I came here first, my friends said, "Oh, Regener, how can you move here? It is horrible. There's nothing there." And they came back 20 years later and couldn't believe it, so it has improved incredibly.
After we'd done the earthworks and so on, I was tasked with doing a vegetation survey. So we got the old plans out and did a a survey, literally every significant tree on the property. So it'd be so fascinating now to come back. A lot more trees now and a lot more difficult, but yeah, it's interesting to see how the place has revegetated naturally over that 30 years.
So now we're up on the very top of the property, well, one of the very high points of Crystal Waters on the back boundary, and we're on a whole network of fire trails that we maintain. It's a really important part of the property in that nearly all of our dams have their catchments start up on this ridge here. So that's really good in a way because that means that we control the water quality in our dams. So it's also a really special part of the property for some animals. We get glossy black cockatoos up here, which are really rare and threatened bird species.
This year now is the 30th anniversary of our beginnings down on the farm.
Is it?
Exactly
Okay.
30 years.
Clumping ones are more tropical bamboos and the running bamboos are more temperate. We're in the subtropics, so it's kind of we're an edge species here. We can grow some of the clumpers and some of the running ones.
This is our pride and joy. This is mozo, and this is one of the best clumps of mozo in the country. And mozo is probably the most economically important bamboo in the whole world. 80% of all the bamboo in Japan is mozo. Thousands of square kilometres of China is mozo. Like so many people back in the early 70s, my wife and I did the overland trip to Europe and we got to Bali, and there we were, staying in a bamboo hut, eating bamboo shoots, smoking through bamboo pipes, listening to bamboo music. It was everywhere. It locked into my head then, we need bamboo back in Australia. So I put myself on a map when we came back and I contacted all the botanic gardens, collected all the bamboo resources, started a thing called the Bamboo Network, and we haven't looked back. I mean, it's the most useful plant to man. 1988, I moved up here. Yeah. We'd planted some of it beforehand, but when you joined the party, that was all about then.
Well, that was Yarra Happany in '88, that permaculture convergence.
Well, I became interested in it all when we had the Earth Care conference back in Papenbarrow, which was the first permaculture conference, and Bill Mollison had mooted the idea of a permaculture village and the whole idea of living in a community as a village rather than self-sufficiency sounded really good. Birrell Creek was an option that popped up. A lot of us, Jeff Young and Tony Gilfedder and others, were all interested in that, but that for one other reason didn't fly. Max and Jeff and Bob's sample and that got this place going, so I was one of the first people to put my hand up.
I was living in Alice Springs at the time, and I'd gotten interested in permaculture when I lived in Papua New Guinea, and we started a permaculture association of Central Australia. And once I was convinced that the way we were living wasn't sustainable, in fact was pretty crazy, I wanted to try and live a bit more closer to the way I was thinking. When Crystal Waters cropped up, I thought it could be worth a try, like-minded people.
It was fun those early days because it was a bit of a convergence of a lot of the most active permaculture people in the country all came together here in the valley. So
that's true enough.
Head-butting each other with our various ideas of what permaculture is.
Yep.
So Crystal Waters Christmas parties in the early days were brilliant. I think it was generally Graham Harper who was dressed as Santa Claus. And just remember all the little kids running behind the fire truck and chasing after Santa.
Santa's arrived
it was,
on the fire truck.
Yeah,
Well, Crystal Waters has its own fire brigade. We had a major fire event in 1994 and that kicked off the membership. We have a network of dams and fire hydrants through the property, which also helps greatly with fire control in extreme situations. We're a bit lucky with the climate here that we don't get too much of that. We do the odd hazard reduction burn on the property. It's pretty reassuring, I think, for most people to have a fire brigade.
What is permaculture? I reckon it's different for everybody. For me, it's care of the land and care of people, and distributing all the produce that we make. It's a way of life, really. You like being here, don't you? Yes.
Permaculture is essentially about designing sustainable ways of living. You know, the idea behind it is that we actually start to change the way we live and the way we think. It's an attitudinal approach to how we live our life, how we make decisions about our work and our relationships and our land and everything. Everything that we do can be influenced and informed by permaculture.
The idea of permaculture really resonated with me. I felt really attracted to it because I felt there's something there that can sort of become our principle to follow so that we can live on this planet for a long, long time. We're not just exhausting the resources, we're not exhausting ourselves in this fast-paced society, but we can have a long-lasting, happy life.
We can make a difference, that we can change the way that we live, we can regenerate the earth. You know, we hear so much about all the things that are going wrong, and yes, that is happening, but this is a very practical response that can happen at small scale all around the world, and it is, you know, and it's an idea that's time has come. It's rippling out around the world, and communities everywhere are doing it. It's a way to shift our thinking from a sort of a consumer way of life to actually being producers and collaborators. In many ways, this idea of shifting from a mechanistic paradigm to an ecological paradigm, we need to actually really turn things around and flip it upside down, and that's essentially what permaculture is trying to do.
Ethical investment in Australia grew out of permaculture. Maleny Community Credit Union, which is the first ethical bank really in Australia, it was based on permaculture ethics, and it grew out of the Alternative Economic Summit that was heavily engaged with lots of permaculture people.
I think it's important to have it close to your kitchen, as Bill says, zone 1, where we can pick it fresh, eat it fresh. It must be the best for us. We use drip irrigation. We double plant. For each drip we have 2 seedlings we put in, and it keeps us going all year round.
We try and be self-sufficient, but it doesn't quite work. We designed this veggie garden so that I can reach each part of it too, and higher up so I can be still gardening when I'm 80, hopefully. I've been here 25 years now. We've been in the house itself for 15 years. And before that in a caravan at the top of the block.
Unless we can grow our food without any fertilisers, we're in great trouble. We've got to use the natural rhythm of the planet. It's a system of growing things hydroponically, but using all the natural resources to implement fertiliser to the whole system. There's 6 bars here, and just tilted angle. And it's recircled from this pump down here. It goes into the greenhouse, goes through those things and back down here. I used to grow all these beautiful plants in here without any aid from fertiliser.
I came here 30 years ago.
We took this little house on. It was kind of like a rental house. First thing we did with it really was like solar power, rainwater.
All of our water supply we use for showering and cooking. The only thing we use the reticulated water for is the garden and toilet flushing. And so we've got 2 really full tanks now.
Almost produce our own water from the sky. What did Tahira call it? Sky wine. And I get to bath in that every day, and the feeling of bathing in water that is from the rain, heated by the sun, is amazing.
The purple plant here is Mexican sage. I love it for its drought hardiness and also the velvety leaves. Fragrant things are really important to me to give the garden soul. And I do have a bit of a penchant for dark purple and black flowered things. Like, it's sort of I call it punk Gothic permaculture. It's kind of the theme of my garden.
From the early days, the eyes of the world were watching us because we were the first ever permaculture village, first ever intentional permaculture community. These days there's so many more examples of great eco-villages, of permaculture being part of community design, that we're not such a focus as we used to be. And sometimes people are a little bit critical because they look around and, you know, things aren't labelled. It's a private residential village, so you've got a huge diversity of people living their lives here. The tours we do really help instruct people about the permaculture that is happening here.
I realised there's a need for guided tours of Crystal Waters. Initially find out what it is that particularly interests them, whether it's community or permaculture or horticulture or housing, building design, and I try and talk a bit to that. I think it's important that people come here, do have the opportunity to learn about the place and not just wander around wondering what's going on. The people really seem to get a buzz out of it.
So we'll be sort of working our way down and then we'll swap over. So you get to do both of those things.
The camping ground is a landmark for Crystal Waters, really. Originally, this is where Crystal Waters was actually birthed. A lot of the design and the meetings and the share meals and the conversations they all had around designing it on permaculture principles, a lot of that was talked about actually in the eco park. In the bunkhouse we have got 2 family rooms. Bring your own bedding or we supply bedding for an extra fee.
This room has 4 bunks for our backpackers.
And we also have a cabin that's more self-sufficient. Other than that, it's camping. We try to create a safe environment. It's an alcohol and drug-free zone. Eco Park Camp Kitchen, and we've got a couple of fridges, 2 gas cookers here with 4 burners. It's just a beautiful lifestyle and nice people around and great place to come and visit, so come and visit us.
There's been a lot of restoration work done on Crystal Waters over many, many years. Several kilometres actually of river frontage. It's an ongoing thing. I'd really like to see all of the riparian zones on Crystal Waters restored to have some decent habitat. So this is the part of the Mary River which forms one of the boundaries of Crystal Waters. So when it gets really dry in the rest of the landscape, riparian zones are where all the animals come to because it's wetter and cooler there.
Crystal Waters is kind of a little bit like a boomerang shape, and on the long side we're surrounded by rivers and creeks. This is the Kilcoy Creek, which feeds into the Mary River, one of the last non-dammed rivers in Queensland, and it's the river that runs all the way down to Fraser Island, the World Heritage Area. Popular swimming holes all the way up and down the creek for people who live here at Crystal Waters. We're part of a citizen science project here, and we monitor the quality of the water at where all the rivers meet, and this is a benchmark for the rest of the river. We have platypus, we have the amazing old lungfish, ancient fish. There's the endangered Mary River cod. You see kingfishers diving in. It's just a wonderful place. It's also a source of water to be fed up into high tanks within Crystal Waters and drip fed down to each of the houses within the village. And part of the permaculture design of this village was to actually make sure that there was no development or impact on this river system, and worked with the neighbouring farms to also push their fences back so that cattle no longer come down to the river, and this stays as sort of a beautiful wild space within the village.
Riparian areas are really important in the landscape because they're the interface between what's happening in the water and what's happening up on the land. All of the dead material that falls from the vegetation is what runs the aquatic food web.
I've been wandering around up in the bush here for about 15 or 20 years, weeding, looking, observing, learning, hopefully, developing a personal experience how to regenerate some of this degraded forest here. I am the licence holder of this whole gully system called Dooja Dell. The word Dooja is the local gubby name for the native citrus that grow in this end of the Mary Valley and nowhere else. For what I do is bush regeneration. It's basically weeding, letting nature do its own thing with my help. So I tend to do the weeding and let the natural regrowth come in, take over from the lantana, shade it out, and the other more invasive weeds as well, and establish a more natural ecology.
Southeast Queensland is an amazing place for biodiversity. It's one of the biodiversity hotspots in Australia, so we've got a responsibility to look after that. And the restoration efforts that have been done here are really contributing to that effort. Yeah, and it's good. It's really good to be part of that.
It's wonderful to listen to the birds as we're doing this morning. I have a whole series of relationships with different wallaby and kangaroo families where I walk. It's lovely to see the water and how it changes. These past few mornings as it's getting colder, there's different levels of mists that come into the valley, and today we were in clouds right up to where I'm staying. It's just a delight to be here and to be in this very textured ecology which is helping us reconnect with place, and not from a power over land management, but a relationship with where we're allowing the land to regenerate. And one of the things that's the most touching is the cemetery.
We're on a slope here looking across a valley which is over to our east, and it's a very pleasant spot to sit. Last year I undertook a funeral celebrants training course, and I'm now a qualified funeral celebrant. As far as we know, probably the only independently run cemetery on this scale in Queensland. That allows us to have 200 burials here.
At the very beginning, all the children that were living here at the time were asked, do you want to have a school at Crystal Waters? And they said no. They didn't want to lose connection with their friends up in Mullaney and other places. There's been a lot of homeschooling happen through the community as well, and at times those homeschooling groups have been really strong, but again it depends on the people and who's involved and their interests. But at one stage they were using the carousel on a regular basis. There was like a little homeschool happening there, and they had, little desks and all the resources they needed. They'd also, take their children out of the community and join with other homeschoolers around the place, or take them sailing or art galleries, around the place as well.
I met Bill Mollison in 1976. Bill Peake and myself, we organised his first tour of southeast Queensland. It was quite an amazing experience. And then in 1979 I was invited with another 18 people to do the first permaculture course. And I did the second in 1980, and I was co-teaching the third one in 2001. It's quite amazing to think back the number of people who are living here now came first to the permaculture course and then liked the place and decided to buy into Crystal Waters. Now at one stage in the peak of permaculture, we would have about 5 courses a year, and now we're still doing 1 a year.
So this has been incorporated into the design.
Seeing the educational potential of Crystal Waters is quite vast for me. Having the venue of the Eco Centre, having a living canvas or a bioregional perspective of a lot of different on-site places of interest already demonstrating permaculture.
The permaculture course is really pretty much for anybody. It empowers people to take action. It's about design. Bill Mollison would say what permaculture would say, it's design. It's about observation and design.
We've reached the budget, about $15,000.
So we've just had the graduation, and it's always a pleasure to look around the room and see a group of people that otherwise wouldn't have been in the same space, but people coming from a diverse range, international, farmers, local food people, and people just looking for a change.
We're looking at some of the permaculture principles. Then we're looking at plants, we're looking at structures, we're looking at gardens, looking at animals, and see how they can all be integrated into a whole to work for us, as we can get the biggest yield possible from these different aspects, but also are able to take these yields without doing damage to the environment. But it is about food, it's about design, it's about observation, it's about feedback loops we talk in permaculture, where we learn from our mistakes. The beds down there were planted yesterday by the students, so as an exercise. It gives them the basic knowledge to be able to go home and do it. For me, that's important.
The central feature of permaculture is the idea of an ethical core focused on care for people and care for the earth. Now, as someone who's been steeped in ethics for many years, I'm really interested to question what it means to care for people in particular. Care for people beyond those of our immediate neighbours. What does it mean to care about the system as a whole? Do we have any caring responsibility for the system itself, as well as to our own properties? What I would like to see here at Crystal Waters is the beginnings of a learning centre where people from around the world can come here and address those kinds of questions. There's a huge need for people to come together to start taking responsibility for the globe, for the planet, as well as for their own gardens.
For the last 20 years we've been having school camps, and we do practical permaculture. We look at all the sustainable food systems and sustainable building materials, and it's an opportunity for the kids from the city to come out and really explore what it means to live a sustainable life.
My name's Warunga. I'm a Bunjalung Gumbanga number man. Keep my culture alive by painting and dancing. I'm a dancer. And travel with Sabine to Europe, working on how to promote Indigenous culture. I'm one of those people who are not going to let it die out. So it's one of the oldest race that we need to continue our journey of dreaming.
And I came to Mullaney and this area here in Crystal Waters over 28 years ago, and I straight away fell in love with it. And when I met Warunga, we decided to start working together, and I knew a company in Germany. So we went there and we did Australiana shows about 9 times over to Europe. Warunga and his art and his dances, and we found a very, very receptive audience over there.
Don't wash it all. Okay. Don't rub it, just dry.
Oh, the Wellness Festival, wow, that was a project. It was for free at start and it was beautiful. It was amazing. We had support, we have sponsors.
When there is a goal, the community come together. And creating the Wellness Festival also helped me to understand how important it is to have fun. We can talk about all the elements of becoming healthy and eat this, eat that, but if we don't laugh, if we don't smile, if we don't have hugs, what's the point of life? So when you come to visit Crystal Waters, have no expectations. We are just a group who have a big dreams of become sustainable and live off the land, but we are in a journey.
I think the most difficult part probably is the aspect of the body corporate, where the politics are happening. And that, of course, is always a conflict area.
Well, I just think there's been a big influx of younger people in recently, and we do have a tendency here to go, no, we've done that before, that won't work. And I think we have to revisit things that have been done before, because this might be the right time with the right people.
Yeah, I think there's a lot about a sense of ownership. So the older people, and I don't just mean age, I mean people who've been here for a long time, they may well have a sense of privilege in terms of knowing what's been done and what didn't work, and what this place is not about and what it should be about and all of that. And I think maybe we do need to relax a bit and welcome people more, encourage people more.
And I think even all this time on, people still don't understand the decision-making structures here and the difference between the co-op and the body corporate and how things work.
Yes, Crystal Waters is, I guess, a bit unique in that respect, because not only do we have a body corporate, but we also have a cooperative. And it's interesting that the cooperative is actually a member of the body corporate by virtue of the fact that it owns two lots here at Crystal Waters. It owns lot 1 is the village, and lot 48 is our caravan park, which we fondly call the Eco Park.
It means, of course, that we need to have quite a few volunteers. So we need to have some people who are on the body corporate committee, and others who are, or perhaps even the same people, are on the co-op board.
Body corporate committee, as it is called, have 7 members, and the co-op board can also have 7 members as well, and they can be the same or different people.
And the body corporate really handles the land aspects of Crystal Waters, doesn't it? Whereas the Crystal Waters Cooperative is the social and entrepreneurial arm, and it's there for the financial and social benefits of the members.
And all the members of the body corporate, of course, and their tenants too.
True.
The co-op is very inclusive, and it allows residents who aren't actually lot owners to become members of the cooperative.
Yes.
So whereas to be a body corporate member, you actually have to be a landowner. And that's the main difference between the two. The co-op gives the residents here a bit of a voice on the management and the running of the place if they so desire.
We don't have any new members to vote on.
People look around and go, oh, where's the permaculture? Why isn't there this happening or that happening? Especially in the early days when there was only 20 of us here for quite a few years doing a lot of the work. And people would come and visit their lots and come to the working bees with weeding groundsel and things. But I've often said that villages don't just happen overnight. They grow and evolve over centuries. I really love that we're 30 years old and we're still in our infancy. We're just growing this really slowly, and we've already seen different changes in the dynamics and the ages of people and that kind of thing.
Socially, Crystal Waters is in its infancy, and I see that evolving as our general society becomes more dysfunctional, and I certainly am a great believer in that we're living in what is a dysfunctional society at the moment, and there needs to be a paradigm shift for our species to continue on the planet. And I see that a parallel shift will take place at Crystal Waters, or is taking place. I can see the changes happening now, and it'll be more obvious as more younger people come on and are active at Crystal Waters.
Yeah, we just came out here to get in touch with nature, as most people do, and so when we first got here it was sort of an escape from the city, and it was beautiful, and we just really were excited about having nature around us. The biggest thing for me is when I come into Crystal Waters, I feel like I'm coming home in a sense, and I know that sounds really cheesy, but it feels like it's a family here, and in a sense that there's the grandpas and the grandmas and the children, and there's people with their opinions, and there's people here to, you know, help you, and people here to maybe not help you, and you've got to find your place. And it's definitely like a wholesome type of lifestyle, but it has been really testing. Right now we're woofing. Yeah, it's getting a little bit intense just with all the work. For Jude it's great because he gets to experience nature, and yeah, it's been pretty good.
A little bit crazy. So living in Crystal Waters is really good, and it's stunning. Like if you actually wake up early in the morning, there's birds and there's kangaroos and there's community meals, and there's really, yeah, good humans, super good humans, and it's great.
I'm so lucky that my daughter, her niece, can go out and forage in the day, get pecans, mandarins and grapefruits, and she actually knows, she'll see a tree and she knows what leaves to eat, what not to eat. That's special. And she's 2.
We do it 4 times. Get it low.
2003 moved down, and yep, love the look at a place and love the nature of Crystal Waters, the wildlife, the birds, kangaroos, wallabies everywhere.
And I like the diversity of the community as well, and the diversity of the lots here. Every place is different, and because we had a baby, there was quite a few young families around as well, so that was very supportive to be able to get together with other young mums and other young families with their children, their babies. As Brianna grew up, that was really important.
I think Crystal Waters has an opportunity on different levels to create community, even though the vision was for everyone to be part of the community, and we all are in different ways. I also see that there's opportunities to create your own community on your own individual land. There's enough on an acre to have different types of housing, to have woofers, to have different people come through, and to live in your own little micro community environment, not just in the big picture of Crystal Waters. And that's exciting because there's autonomy there.
Welcome to the Dream Plant. This is a community within the community. This is a place of accommodation. It's been a guest house. Everybody's a guest that comes here. Some come for the day as a guest and we have a cup of tea and go on a tour. Some come for a week or more or a couple of months as a workawayer and help me on the property in all the variety of projects, from biochar production to putting on music events to helping in the community. I try to keep the place open, keep it friendly, keep it loving and fun. I love to show people the local area regardless of who the guests are. I love to connect people in the community. I love to connect people to the broader community and the broader network.
We're still walking in the song lines of those that walked before us, and this has always been an area for the Indigenous people to come together in community, family and in celebration. And I feel like it's a real honour to be continuing that lineage, if you like, in that way, and we're all trying to do that, find our Indigenous souls and connect with the land deeper.
You can be as busy or as relaxed here as you want to. You can be involved in lots of different things. Like, I know that people find that much harder in a suburban settings. Our walking group on a Sunday morning, we amble along and we really get to know each other and really enjoy the fact that we can go into places on the property that you on your own probably wouldn't be game to venture into, but Been here for 23 years and I'm still seeing places that I've never been to before.
Yeah.
So we're here now at the kitchen, and we all remember when this was built, but actually before this was built, we'll remember that Mum and her friend Denise had set up her first ever cafe on a Sunday here in Crystal Waters.
It came from Denise. She came up with the idea of doing croissants on a Sunday morning. And so we decided, we bought some champagne and orange juice and we got the croissants and we opened up the cafe up on the community hill. It had already been a shop years ago before we got there. We were the absolute pioneers. We came in 89 and the original people had been here 87, 88. So I never feel like I'm an original twice.
Not quite.
It's a very interesting thing that we're actually born in the sign of Cancer when we're a community of people who are looking after one another. And Cancer in astrology is the sign of mothers and nurturing and home and domestic stuff and family and roots and where you belong. And Crystal Waters is a community that takes people a lot of ways out of the mainstream and into a community that's got set up on a whole lot of different principles.
So there is one slight problem with Crystal Waters, is the fact that there's no eligible bachelors. So if you do want to come here and breed, BYO man, or we just need a truckload of them to come through. It's a problem.
Huh. Is that why you're leaving?
That's why I'm leaving.
That's not true.
Well, I came here in the mid-90s. I was attracted by the permaculture principles here. In 2001, we were able to build an oven, and the idea of building the oven was just to have an oven that was big enough for 200 people to have a meal together.
Our local sourdough bakery is heated with firewood, and this stack of wood was donated by a neighbouring farmer. One dream in my life was to build my own house, and I knew Max, one of the designers of Crystal Waters, and he said, "Oh, we're starting a community at Crystal Waters, so come and have a look." So I came here, and it looked what I needed. I built my house there in 1990 and have lived there most of the time since. I was in forestry for 18 years before I came to Queensland, and I went to Central America as permaculture advisor for 2 years with volunteers abroad. Hello. Morning, Peter. What would you like? In '98 I met the baker for the first time, but he wasn't a baker then, he was a special ed teacher.
A spelt and a fruit and nut loaf, please.
He always wanted to make his living on Crystal Waters, decided to start a bakery, and I've been assisting with that process ever since. I don't bake myself, but I do his accounts and do his ordering and help selling and various other things that go with the bakery.
So what I'm looking forward to is the young folk taking the infrastructure that we've built to date one step further. And I've really enjoyed the opportunities, I suppose, that have come here, because I wouldn't have been able to build this bakery in Mullaney simply because I didn't have the resources. I was able to build the oven and the frame. Over the years, as we sold bread, we built walls.
Yeah, my name is Bernard De Vos, originally from France. I'm taking over the bakery in November, and we'll continue to make sourdoughs and bring a little bit of French patisserie and bakery side in this place. Voilà. I'm so happy to be the new baker too here. I hope to be as good as Les, and keeping his way. What Les doing here, it's exceptional. You cannot find anymore a lot of places or people are so involved with this quality. The good ingredients, the good process to be sure is giving something very healthy, very clean. And in France you cannot find a place like that. You have to book your bread 6 months, 1 year in advance to be sure you could buy it, you know.
The coffee shop is fully operating, and that's one of my dreams coming true.
Hi, I'm Allie.
I'm Flynn.
I've been making coffees for many other people around the hinterland area and just felt like we should provide this service for our neighbours and our friends. So we thought that we'd put in a little bit of love and hard work and make it happen.
Serving coffee, making muffins.
Milkshakes, best milkshakes in Crystal Waters.
Yeah. The only milkshakes in Crystal Waters.
I've been here 30 years since the beginning. It was the last lot for sale, and people wouldn't be able to move on their lot before that last lot was sold. By trade, I'm an electrician, and I'm born in Amsterdam in Holland. I traveled, so it was really time to sort of settle down. We had 2 babies, Yori and Troy, and they have grown up here.
That's one of my favourite things about being in the community is the support of everyone around us. Like,
yeah, definitely.
You know, like when Mum and Dad weren't here,
yeah,
we'd have our neighbours and they'll look after us.
We're like free-range children. With,
yeah, with free-range eggs are better, so free-range kids are better.
Exactly.
I've been doing mowing in Crystal Waters for 2 or 3 years now, which includes the roadside edges, some of the pathways, dam spillways and walls. It's quite a big job, can take up to 15 hours a month in the height of growth season. So I've recently gone and purchased a bigger, better, faster lawnmower and essentially cut the time down by half so far.
I've been working for Malcolm for the last 2.5 years, and we've been making spindles, which are a wooden tool that you use to turn fleece into string. So it's a little wooden tool about that big, and then you spin it and it turns the fleece that you get off a sheep or any type of material like that, and then you turn it into a thread, which then you can turn into clothing. It's a new love for me, and I see myself turning for the rest of my life.
With all the mothers and children
The
group,
yeah. Yes, it's lovely.
And
we are the Fantuzzi Artisans. We came up with that name to reflect having fun and that we really enjoy being together here creating art. It all started when Sandra and I decided that we wanted friends coming together to do some creative work, and we've been doing it ever since, and it's been fun.
Susie inspired me to get back into art. I hadn't done art for many years, and when I came to Crystal Waters I was hoping to do it, and then I met Susie and she was very encouraging.
Skylar. A mosaic piece at the camp kitchen. That was one of our first big mosaic pieces. We meet at each other's places once a fortnight. Everybody takes a turn and also presents an activity or some painting, some drawing, some sewing. We worked on Lois's mosaic that she had started before she died.
And now we are painting these rubbish bins, and we want to put our camp kitchen in Eco Park. Welcome to Eco Park.
This is it's gorgeous. A bat plant. Bud opening.
Batman.
Bat. Susie was part of here and inspired me with her drawings at the beginning. We did a lot of life drawing. That's what I love about it, is that we're always doing different things that everyone can contribute. It's, for me, it's a really good way to stay connected. Yeah, and I'm very glad to be here.
Anyway, don't forget to do some white belts.
We are milking the cows. We're down here this morning at about 7:30. We all take turns at milking like one day a week.
How many people are in this internal collective? About 8 families, something like that. It's perfect really, because there's the smallest amount of effort from each family to get their weekly allowance of milk sorted out. Some people make feta cheese, cream cheese, halloumi's a popular one. It's nice to have a bottle of milk that has the cream sitting at the top of it. Yeah, it's nice.
The instrument itself is called ngoni. It's from West Africa. It's made by a New Zealand maker. It's the gourd as a calabash, goat skin, fishing line. The gourd comes from Burkina Faso in West Africa. The maker comes over once a year and assembles his instruments near Byron and travels around Australia selling and delivering. Jeremy Cloak is his name.
I've been making instruments about 25 years. My instruments are hopefully fairly indestructible, weatherproof, often large scale. My main focus really for making instruments is community involvement in music. It's kind of died out in Western culture due to production and consumption. Really, those two things have stopped just average people making music. The idea is interaction and involvement in music, and so make instruments that draw people in. I have made the largest fire organ in the world. The sails on this ship are 3 huge pyrophones. So the front one's stainless steel, the middle one's copper, the back one's aluminium. And they're all just like organ pipes, except they're just straight through tubes which we put fierce gas flames into. When the flame goes into the tube, it excites the standing wave in the tube, so the different lengths of the tubes will give you a different note each time you put the flame in a different tube. Already being into thongophone, which is a very pure sine wave, pyrophone immediately just, appealed.
passion is music. I've been a professional musician for the last 30 years. So I thought, what can I contribute to the community here? Provide a monthly musical event on the last Saturday of every month. A variety is what we're going for. Sometimes we have classical music, sometimes we have rock and roll. We had a great dance band last time. Got wonderful support from the community. I've got a great crew. My main assistant would be Tom Nielsen, who's a wonderful musician and sound man. He's got a long history of doing sound at various festivals and events.
I'm a local musician who has been here for about 6 years now, and I play the harp and I play the violin and I do a bit of singing. I take quite a lot of choirs. With each word your tenderness grows, tearing my fears apart. And that laugh that wrinkles your nose touches my foolish heart. Yes, you're lovely, never ever change. I think people most know me for the choir work that I do. I think I take 7 choirs at the moment. I'm not sure, there's so many of them. And we do lots of performances, and I like to do daytime choirs to give people opportunity to sing in choirs who don't necessarily want to travel at night and who want something very casual and low-key. And I also do a lot of singing lessons and violin lessons and harp lessons, as well as adjudications and workshops and taking other choirs around the state. My foolish heart, yes, you're lovely, never ever change. Keep that precious charm. Won't you please arrange it, 'cause I love you. We came in here and we found out it was built for sound therapy work 28 years ago or so now, and that was it. I knew that night when I was staying at the Eco Park that that was it. Little love heart shape there. Yeah. See that? Love heart conducting shape in the air. Oh, I love it. I feel something so good. Yeah.
This is a style of belly dance that is a group dance. It's called tribal.
So the Chill Sesh is the perfect opportunity to bring youth into Crystal Waters. It gives the young people a place to express themselves in comfort and basically have fun.
Another highlight for me was building the first building in the village, the community kitchen building. It was fantastic to be part of a small group that did a participatory design exercise with the community that helped us build this. Also canvassing, harvesting from the community labour to help build the building and getting that all in place was such a highlight for me. Maybe because I was involved, but also because as a community we built the first building and we used the remaining $90,000 of the Community Development Fund to do that, and it really kick-started the village.
We came together with a group that we live here and we made the idea to make something special for the community and before to do a process to find that out. So we walked through the paddocks and we looked at the place and we discussed where we want. We went even blindfolded, hand in hand, and it was a beautiful experience. We made models, you know, little models, and we came up with this shoe-shaped welcoming center. And now, you know, this building is very successful and the community is getting more and more together.
I built my own house with a bit of assistance from Jan, who was one of the builders here. In the early days we had about 4 different builders here, which was good.
So I made my own house and I made many other people's houses here. Of the 84 lots, I built on 48 lots, plus this one, and on some I'm still building. So I use a lot of different materials in alternative building. It goes from straw bale, mud brick, rammed earth, pole frame, and conventional, and just lately I do a Hebel building. But the use of second-hand material is most of the time very much featured, and a round post. Up here we have made straw bale houses, and they're very economical because people can do hands-on.
We moved to Crystal Waters in 1995 and bought this lot very early in '96. And we lived on the lot for a year in a caravan before we decided where and what we were going to build. We decided we wanted an earth house and we wanted a roof with grass on it. And we were planning on building out of the side of the hill, but because of the rainfall here, we decided that that possibly wasn't a good idea for dampness. So we built a rammed earth home with a sod roof.
Back in 1990 I bought a block here at Crystal Waters and I had this ideal to build the permaculture dream, and I started on that. I built a dome house out of earth blocks. I had to make all the earth blocks myself, and luckily I met a guy here at Crystal Waters who had a machine. He employed quite a few people on that job.
I didn't come here for permaculture, so that was an added bonus, permaculture. I came here for a community with good social interaction, and the ridge that I live on, I've got such good neighbours and I just love living here. I think it's fantastic. We've got the cafe, we've got our own privacy, and we've got supportive neighbours, and permaculture is an added bonus, and the possibility of a village area which is a really, I think, a green view of the future, and I think ecological villages are the way to go. So I'm absolutely satisfied.
I've been living here for about 20 years now, and I came here because I really wanted to be able to be in a place where I could live and work with a sustainable thinking in mind, that it wasn't, I go off to work here and then this is my home and every part of my life is separate. This was a place that allowed me to actually live in a really contiguous way. And I really feel that I've been able to do that here, and it's amazing. But there's a lot of things that I don't think I really have achieved yet, and I think there's a lot of things that as a village too that we still haven't achieved yet. And I don't feel like that's a bad thing, because this place I really like because it's evolving in village time. It's not like a master plan community that gets plonked down, everything's done and finished and you move in and that's it and done and dusted. It's actually about people growing into the place.
Now 80% of Crystal Waters is common land, which nobody private owns. Then 6% is cooperative land. It's sort of a bit between common and private. And then only 14% is actually privately owned. And that was deliberate. I think we were much better at having the balance of fun and work. If we want to achieve the potential, abundance, we need to find that balance again.
My parents came from a village in Italy, and villages traditionally they take 300, 400 years to develop.
Yep.
So what Crystal Waters has done in 30 years has been phenomenal. In the original days of permaculture, a lot of the modelling was around your own little block, being sustainable, and almost like being a single cell organism, where you have your zones and your sectors, you grow your own fruit, your firewood, you have your animals. Now the next wave, social permaculture, is where those little cells, those organisms are evolving and they're joining up with other ones. At the moment there's been a tendency to want to remain, Crystal Waters as a closed unit. And I think from a socio-economic perspective, that's hampered the growth of the co-op and the business and economic opportunities. Now we've got to start looking at what technologies do we have where we can start to interact with other communities and the society at large.
We have been here for such a long time, for 30 years. And from the start, in the beginning, we were really busy working in Crystal Waters with other projects that needed to happen. And in a way, like, now that's enough. Let other people take over and let other people go and do the weeding and be part of the body corporate and the co-op and make decisions, get new ideas in.
If you're going to live in a community, you've got to be prepared to accept that other people's ideas are valid and not to block them unnecessarily. Let people do their things even if it's not what you do, so that things can happen. The tendency is to go to the lowest common denominator and stop all the things that people don't like, and then nothing happens. So somehow or other we need to be more trusting of each other and more accepting and be willing to let more things happen rather than stifle things.
And things have happened, so people have been tolerant enough for this much to happen. But if some of the rules changed, it might develop a lot faster.
It's good to see you looking positive, Hans. It's a lot easier when you don't live here anymore.
Well, Crystal Waters is the epitome of Hotel California. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. That's why I'm sitting here.
Our market day that happens once a month, it's a highlight. The village comes totally awake every market day.
We get people coming all the way up from Brisbane, they come from Gympie and over from Maroochydore, and it's just a really good thing to be a part of.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Come on in, don't be scared.
Best falafel in Queensland.
Joyful and colourful. I try.
Yeah, it's a good little market. Yeah, really good.
We had a dream, we had a vision. It was big, and it's not too late.
It's a lot of work and vision and gumption and risk to make a project like this happen. And it's never really going to live into necessarily the full expression of what even the founders might have hoped. But the fact that it's here and it's been a beacon for people from afar and a destination for people to make a pilgrimage to, such as myself, all these years, and I think for many years to come. It's an extremely valuable member of our global eco-village network, and I'm really thankful to be here.
I think good on Crystal Waters, 30 years. It's still here, still going, and look, I look forward to the next 30 years of being part of Crystal Waters.
Yeah, I'm sure it's got a really strong future. I'm sure it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
My name at Crystal Waters in the early days was Rainbow because I connected things.
Yeah, nice.